Hello, everybody. This is Ed Brenniger, and this is the Eddie Network podcast. And this is the local edition for Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And it's my honor and privilege today to have MikeFoster with us. MikeFoster is the executive director of the Winston Street School. And I know a little bit about the street school from family connections, but I'm really interested in having a conversation with Mike today about the students that they have and the mission that they have there in Winston-Salem. So welcome, Mike. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you end up doing this kind of work?
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. Yeah, I have been in nonprofit work for, 25 years or so now, mostly in and around this area in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I've been attached to organizations that have had a human service nature about them, whether it's working with homeless population or just in need population for emergency services. I've worked with adults with developmental disabilities, doing some job training and life skills training. And this is my first foray into working with high school age youth and in particular at-risk high school age students. It's been an adventure for the last 5 years, and I look forward to the next 5 years. It's a great organization, really making an impact, and as they say, kind of moving the needle, so to speak, here in our community, and just reaching a lot of young folks that maybe would otherwise fall through the proverbial cracks in the education system.
So let me ask you a couple of questions so that our viewers and listeners will understand. So what does it mean for a kid to be considered an at-risk student or at-risk kid?
Yeah, that's that term. It's interesting. Depending on who you talk to, and I've tried to come up with a different moniker, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I think that describes the students that we serve pretty well. All of our students, well, most of our students, are referred to us from the public school system. The Winston-Salem Street School is not part of that system. We're a private school, happens to be a 501c3 nonprofit. So we don't receive any state or federal funds to do what we do. We're kind of a standalone entity, but we're a really good partner with the public school system because they have seen the success of our program. And so when they have a student that they deem at risk, someone that maybe has just struggled in their system, either behavioral issues, a lot of times that's kind of where it stems from, or issues maybe from the home, a broken family, kind of strife amongst, really no foundation at home. They've been identified as someone that could kind of go off in that direction because they really have no guidance outside the school environment. I guess that's where the at-risk term comes into play. And then when the student starts to stray or not find success in the public school system, then they start to have discussions with us, and usually it's a principal or an assistant or a guidance counselor that reaches out and says, "Hey, I have this young man, this young woman, before it gets too late and they drop out of our system altogether. We'd love for them to consider coming to your program, and would you take the first steps and maybe sit down and interview and have an assessment with them and see if it's a good fit for the street school."
How would you describe the family settings for most of these kids?
Right now, in our latest statistics, this is about a year ago, right at about 90% of our students live at or below the poverty level in our county here. So that's kind of one strike against them there. Close to 80% come from what's considered a broken home, meaning just at least one parent in the picture. A lot of times it's a family member, a grandmother steps up, or an aunt or uncle, cousin, And so there's that lack of foundation structure at home. And so, that in itself kind of puts them behind the 8 ball from the beginning, and then you tack on the fact, well, they start to maybe make some poor choices on their own. But right out of the gate, a lot of our kids come to us with a lot of baggage sometimes, and we just try to dig away what we can and give them a clean slate to work with when they come here. So.
And when a student comes to you, they've been accepted into the school, what is it? What's the first week, a few weeks like for the student?
I would be remiss if I said that it all goes swimmingly well. Sometimes it's an adventure. And we tell people, we tell prospective students all the time, from the time that they come into our door and say, I want to fill out an application. The process is that we get the basic information from them. We get their transcripts from their previous school, so we kind of see what we're looking at or working with, and that includes behavioral patterns, and then also where they stand educationally, how many credits they've accrued, and then we have them write a 1-page essay as to why they want to come into the street school program. And I did in my 5 years here as director, I don't think we've ever had a student that's refused that. A lot of times asking a student to do that after they've just come from a situation that ended typically in negative terms, it's up to us to kind of get them geared up again and enjoying the whole process of learning and being a student. And so, that initial first week or two, sometimes there's some bumps in the road, but we're very patient. We extend a lot of grace, and just knowing that, hey, it's going to take them a few days to kind of find their feet. But I think what they find the majority of the time, if they truly give it a chance, is that they're surrounded by other students that are not unlike themselves, that are kind of going through the same issues and challenges. There's really no judgment there. We're a small enough organization that I just think they feel accepted. But it falls back on that student. It's up to them to truly give it a chance. And we tell them, just give us a quarter of the school year, put your effort into it, and then let's see how it goes from there.
Do you work with the foster care system of the state with any of these students?
We do. As a matter of fact, there are 2 students currently that have come through that system, and had a meeting with one today, as a matter of fact, to discuss some things. And it's interesting, those scenarios, because there is some type of a kind of a foundation in place, albeit not traditional in by any means, but those situations seem to work pretty well. Those students always seem to be very appreciative of the opportunity, and just they obviously want to feel wanted, and I think the street school kind of provides that extended family for them. So we have a couple of students right now, and both of those students are doing really well. So
tell me about how the school interacts with the parents, whether it's one parent or a grandparent or both parents. What happens in your relationship with them?
Well, anytime there is a parent in the picture, and whether it's what we consider traditional home or single parent family, grandparent, whoever's in the picture, we try to involve them from day one. That initial interview with a new student always includes a parent or a guardian. We do it kind of as a team, because the accountability measures that need to be put in place, we can do that here, and we know what we're capable of, and we do hold the students accountable and want them to be bought into what we offer. But the other 18 hours of the day, we need to know that there's someone there in their corner pushing them to finish and to do it right and to do it for the right reasons. So
Sure.
yeah, that's imperative that we whoever's in place. And like I said, our statistics pan out. We're not dealing with a mom and a dad traditional family that often. It usually is a single parent household, and so that presents its own challenges. But if that individual is bought into wanting to see their child succeed, then we do everything we can to make sure that we do it together.
Do you work with other agencies, other organizations in support of these families and these students?
Yeah, we do. We try to make sure we have a pretty good wealth of resources. We know what we can do. We know what we're good at, but we know where we don't have the funds or resources to step in. And so we've developed some good resources for whether it's legal services, child services, you name it. And just having a discussion today with a couple students that were going through some things with their mom and some setbacks and having some issues with paying some bills, and directed them to another organization that's been very good to work with our students and their families. I mean, these are heavy hitting, life altering issues that our kids face. And a lot of times they come to us to say, hey, my mom or my dad or my grandmother's too proud to ask for assistance. Is there someone you can send us to? And like I said, that very thing happened today, and I think we've been able to connect some students to the right folks that can help them so they can focus on being a 16 and 17-year-old and be a student.
So are there things at your school? I know it's a high school. Are there things at your school that you're not able to do that you would have at a regular public or a private school?
Well, I think just the size, the resources to we know that we would love to have a full-time counselor on staff. We don't have the resources right now to do that, but we try to do the next best thing and piece something together. We have a middle school counselor who is retired. She still serves a couple days in that capacity, but she's with us 1 day a week. And our students know that. Students and families know that she's available. We started a partnership with UNC Charlotte, their Master of Social Work program. And so we've had a full-time intern with us this year who's taking part in that program with them. She's acting as a counselor and getting her feet wet into this field and working with this target population. And she's been great. And so we try to provide those resources when we can, however we can do it. But, I mean, like I said, just the sheer size and knowing that, okay, if we need something, if it's a tangible need, laptops, tech equipment, or hiring new staff, it kind of falls on me to go out there and drum up the support to do it. And sometimes that's, I prefer it that way, to be honest, versus, okay, I need to put this request into the system and we'll wait several months to hear something back. I recognize that we need a new English teacher, the coming semester. I go out there and try to make it happen and get the resources to do it. So something refreshing about that. Scary and refreshing at the same time.
Well, like it makes it, you're in a much more flexible situation too.
We use that term a lot around here, the flexibility aspect of it. And that's good. And you have to have a staff that kind of falls in line with that too. And so, I don't want to overextend the staff and the faculty, but they know sometimes they're teaching to maybe a 15-year-old student that's at a 6th or 7th grade level, and they may have a 11th grade student that's a higher level in that same class, and they're expected to teach to the same crowd. So but yeah, flexibility is the key for being in an organization like this. But when it all comes together, it works well.
So to kind of two questions in one. So when a student comes to you, what is your expectation for them? Is it for them to graduate?
Yeah, I think in early on, Ed, I mean, our mission was to provide an opportunity for at-risk students to earn their high school diploma. Kind of end of story. And we've done that. I mean, this is our 19th year. We've had right at 300 students that have graduated the program since we started. We're in line to have about 30 more this year, which is
Wow.
that would be a banner year for us. But several years back, we kind of realized, okay, there needs to be more to the story. We need to make sure these students are prepared for life after high school. Yes, earning that high school diploma. And sometimes they're the first in their family to earn a diploma. That's a big accomplishment. But it kind of hit me the very first year I was here, went to graduation, hadn't been here long, and had a young man that finished against all odds. We knew our work was cut out, didn't know if he would make it, but he did. And he was in his cap and gown holding his diploma. We were celebrating, and he said, "Okay, what's next, Mr. Mike?" And it just kind of hit me that, oh my gosh, I don't know what's next for him. And so we kind of went back to the drawing board and said, okay, we need to have a sustainable plan in place for these young people when they graduate, so they know what they're going to do. And so we started a dual enrollment program with Forsyth Tech. That's been really successful. Students can start taking classes while they're still here in our program. And once they finish here, graduate, transfer over to Forsyth Tech. It's all completely paid for, no expense to them. That's been really successful.
Oh, that's
and
great.
then too, just making sure that if continuing their education is not in the picture, that they are gainfully employed, doing something of their choosing. I think a lot of our students come from that mold of, I work because I have to work, and I'll do this job because my uncle did it or my cousin
Sure.
has done it. This is what I'm supposed to do. And they never really have thought in terms of, you mean I could actually have a career maybe doing something that I enjoy, and I'm excited to get up in the morning and do it. So we try to establish as many connections in the community for job shadowing and things like that. So yeah, we just want them to have good opportunities and take advantage of it.
I'm on the board of directors at the Black Mountain Home for Children, Youth, and Families, and we see a similar thing. And I mean, because we're a children's home, it's a different environment, a different structure. But one of the early things we did, which I guess 10, 15 years ago, was to establish a residential area on the campus for kids when they age out of the foster care or the the system at the age of 18. And so
Right.
and they have a place to go to and live, and as long as they're in school, in college or community college, they'll have a place to live until they're 25. And we've actually now become a little bit looser on those ages, because sometimes it takes a longer to get through that.
Sure.
But I think it's the idea, and I think this is why this is important for people who are watching this to understand that most of these kids have had a hard time because they have been forced to work within the institutional structures of society, and they're not really set for that. They haven't grown up in an environment where they've learned how to do that. So they're at a disadvantage from the get-go. And so helping them learn how to manage their relationship to a school, then to a job, to just a bank, having a bank account, things like that. I think all those things are really, really important. And people need to understand that these are components to developing a solution to kids who are at risk. And
well, and like you said, solutions that are long term, that will last and are sustainable. And you're right. I think in many cases, and this is not to speak disparagingly about many of their family situations, but in a lot of cases, they've not had a role model to follow. They've seen a parent maybe literally almost work themselves to death sometimes and hold down 3 part-time jobs and not really establish any type of budgeting plan, and just kind of living from barely paycheck to paycheck and hustling where they can. And they figure that that's probably their future. And until they're shown otherwise, that no, here's a path, and here's another path that could work for you, and give them some options. At the end of the day, I mean, it boils down to their tenacity and resiliency if they're going to do it. But like I said, we've seen it hundreds of times here in our program for sure.
Yeah, and I've seen these kinds of programs come and go, and that's the problem. When I first got out of the seminary, I was doing community ministry in Atlanta, and a group of churches came together, put a job readiness program for people probably who would have been at-risk students, but they're now older, they're in their 20s. And, they didn't know things like showing up, 10 minutes before your shift starts, things like that. You don't share, those kinds of things. And it was really having a tremendous impact upon these young men and women. And then all of a sudden, a couple of churches says, we're gonna do something else now. So they're back. They step out of the program, and the program folds. And this is, I think, part of the problem that we have in caring for people who are at risk in society, is that they have to fit into the structure of society, when what really society needs to do is figure out how we can fit into their lives and really give them something to do it. So what is it that you're doing as the street school to attract citizens in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, to support you so that this thing is sustainable over a long period of time?
Yeah, that's a great question. To kind of piggyback on what you last said too, I mean, there is no cookie cutter method of making this work. And so I think first off, that's where we succeed, is we meet that student where they are. And you hear that term so much, but we really do, whether they need 2 credits to graduate or 20. We'll build their curriculum around that individual. We're very small. We're serving more students now than we ever have. 2 years ago, we had 35 students in our high school program and about 10 in our adult program. Currently, we have 65 in the high school. We have about 12 on a waiting list that we've had consistently for the year. And our adult program has grown to 38 now. So a couple things have impacted that. COVID kind of threw a weird spin on things, and a lot of students that we went back to high school after failed distance learning and hybrid attempts started coming our way. But I think that's the one thing that our stakeholders, maybe a few foundations that support us, businesses, churches, we have a broad base of church support. They've seen that the street school has just been consistent. I mean, throughout all of that, even weathering COVID as well as we could. We had 16 kids that graduated that first year, and March that COVID hit. We didn't have laptops at that point. We had to scramble and find Chromebooks for these kids to finish out, and they did. And that was just a belief in the stakeholders that show their support for the school. And I'll give you another example. There's a foundation locally that we had kind of had a hard time getting in with them to try to get some support, and was told no a couple of different times. And I'm a development person from way back, and so you're told no a lot. You just have to kind of keep plugging away. And 2 years ago, went to them and said, your mission statement aligns almost identically with ours. there's no reason that we shouldn't be working together to kind of solve some issues here. So I got my foot in the door, and come to find out, they came back and said, lo and behold, you're right. I mean, their goal was to kind of attack systemic problems and really try to get to the root core and make some big sweeping changes. But they said, we're going to support you because, one, we're trying to reach the same people, the same group of folks here. And then two, you're providing something that's a lifeline for them while we can try to figure out how to attack these big problems that we have. And we don't see that going anywhere. I mean, I would love to say that, okay, we have it all figured out and the high school dropout rate is going to stop in our area, 2 or 3 years, 5 years from now. But, that's not realistic. But when that foundation kind of came on board and said, you're not the type of organization, you're not doing the type thing that we would normally support, but you're making such a difference in the lives of these students that you serve, and these are the people that we're trying to help ourselves, we're going to support you. And so I think that, one, gave us a big boost. Two, which I think we already knew, that we were doing good work, but it's nice to have someone to kind of come behind you and say, you need more resources, you're going to be serving more people, we think we can help you. And so our numbers doubled and tripled in some cases. So we're at capacity right now, but that's thanks to people that believe in what we do.
That's fantastic. So what's the future of the street school look like?
Well, the facility that we're in right now, we're very blessed to have the space that we do. We share it with 3 other nonprofits, and we're the largest tenant, I guess you could say, in this building. It's kind of a nondescript brick building in downtown Winston-Salem, but it serves our purposes because it's on the city bus line, which a lot of our students take. We're kind of right in the center where we need to be, but we are a little bit landlocked, I guess you could say, as far as growth of the program. And so we put together a strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan a year ago. And in that plan, we outlined we wanted to be at capacity, serving capacity by year 3. So we met that within the first year. So we're going back and redoing that strategic plan now, to kind of better reflect where we envision ourselves 5 years from now. It's hard to say if a capital campaign and bigger plans are in the future. I think right now we just want to focus on being the best that we can be and serving the number of students that we serve the best that we can, because we know we can always improve and tweak things here and there. So I think that's, the waiting list I mentioned earlier. And then that goes back to the whole flexibility part of it. At the beginning of the year, we filled up over this past summer, and we had 18 folks on the waiting list. So we decided to start doing some supervised online classes 2 afternoons a week for those students, so they could at least get their foot in the door, not be just in limbo, sitting at home waiting for a spot. And so once we started having students graduate or finish after the first semester, then those students came into the day program. So we're just kind of figuring it out, I think, as we go. And thankfully, I have a good staff that's willing to experiment and try some things.
Well, that's fantastic. I think what you're doing represents, I think, what the future of care in communities represents, which is that I think these really big, comprehensive programs are difficult. They're difficult to fund, they're difficult to manage, and they're difficult to achieve their goals because there is the complexity of society is so great now that it's very difficult to say we're going to attack what's one big thing, because there are all these other influences upon that one big thing. So instead you step back and you take, we're going to work with this one kid, or we're going to work with these 30 kids, so 65 kids, and we're going to help them for the next 3 years or 4 years get to a place where they feel like they can be independent and capable of living their lives.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, then there are all kinds of little reverberations that come from that. So I think what you're doing is really significant, and I'm really glad to have had the opportunity to meet you and to talk with you about this. And so if there are people out there who are listening or watching this, want to get involved with the street school, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. And I appreciate everything you just said. That's just good affirmation for what we're doing. Yeah, we've had that discussion a lot, that are we moving the needle? Are we making a difference? And, like I said, we'll have 30 graduates this year, and those are 30 human beings, lives in our community that are going to be forever changed.
I mean, that's huge. That's huge in my mind.
I mean, it is. I mean, and those 30 people have family members, and they have siblings, and they're working jobs and bettering their lives. So, but yeah, as far as getting involved with the program, we utilize a lot of volunteers. We provide, all of our lunches are provided through volunteers. Folks can go to our website and sign up to provide lunch for our students. We don't technically have the resources to do a traditional school cafeteria type thing, but our students eat very well. I think we've had two days maybe this year that someone has not signed up to provide lunch. And now that we're at full capacity, that's a pretty big undertaking to bring lunch for 60 some odd students and staff. But that's a great way for civic groups and churches and businesses to get involved. We utilize a lot of tutors, and you don't necessarily have to have an educational background to do that. You just need to have the need and want and the love to help a student through a particular subject. Mentors, that's a little bit more of a commitment, someone that really wants to kind of come alongside of a student, almost like a big brother, big sister type thing, but just be there as encouragement. Our board of directors are all volunteers. Right now we have a great board of directors. We have an advisory council that helps kind of lead and guide us as well. And my favorite piece about our board of directors that I like to share is that our current secretary of our board of directors, name is Danielle. She's a street school graduate of the class of 2010. So I love telling people that one of my bosses on our board of directors is a street school graduate. It doesn't get any better than that. So
that's right. You're exactly right. That's really fantastic, and that's just the start. It's the future. I would say the future is bright, and however it develops, I think you just take a step at a time, and you receive the opportunities that come your way, and you respond to those, and you stay close to your purpose, close to your values, stay close to your mission, and it all begins to work itself out over time.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Mike, I'm grateful for our time together. I will put in the show notes ways to find the street school and to support it. And I look forward, maybe sometime in the future we'll arrange to do something like this, maybe with a couple of students where we can talk about what they've experienced. That would be a lot of fun.
That's a great idea. We'd love to do that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mike, and we'll see you again, everybody. Please subscribe and hit the like button, but even more so, comment. Let us know what you think. Ask questions so we can be in conversation with you about these things, and hopefully maybe you feel an attachment to what is happening, in this case to the Winston-Salem Street School, or maybe to a program wherever you live where they're working with at-risk kids. So I hope you will find that this is an impetus for you to go do something in your local community that makes a difference, that matters. So I thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.